Hello, BookTube. Let's do the Read Smart tag. Tag all about how do you read? What are your methods of getting into books, reading books, having focus on books, getting the most out of a book? This was created a collaboration between Emily at Prose and Petticoats and Ruben at To Readers It May Concern. And both of their videos are really worth watching in of themselves, just as their own way, own methods of dealing with books. They are more on the kind of very much the literary side, very much more difficult books, literary and nonfiction side. So I'm just going to chime in with what I do, with the kind of books that I read, which is can go from maybe mid difficult to, you know, pretty silly stuff. But seriously reading that silly stuff. So I thought it's worth talking about. So yes, these are the prompts. What is your strategy to stay focused, engaged while reading? I think that is, those are the actual practical things of try and find a place, a quiet, comfortable place where you're not going to get interrupted. That is also trying to carve out a time in the day to do that. I find for myself that I try, especially on my weekends when I'm not, hurrying off to work or I've got lots and lots of all those chores, is to just carve out that time in there is a crucial point of just trying to read for a good couple of hours, uninterrupted, early in the morning on the weekends. I find works for me. Maybe not early in the morning, because another part of this thing might be the focused part, which I would say is, are you getting enough sleep? Because I find when I don't get enough sleep, my focus goes to hell. So those are all various different things that holistically build up to me a well-rested, in a quiet place, comfortable. And I've actually kind of said, no, I'm going to take this time for reading and hold it there for myself is important, and is can be sometimes the most difficult thing of all when it comes to reading. Number 2, how does your environment influence your focus, and what can you do to optimize it? I mean, I just talked about how it's nice to find a quiet place where you can kind of be uninterrupted and get a good bit of reading done. Realistically, during the week, though, I also try and just pick out little places where I can read. I have this wonderful magical device that I'm recording on that also has a Kindle app. So if I happen to be, waiting somewhere for an appointment, or, just stuck in a line somewhere, I can pick up my phone instead of, scrolling through YouTube, because that's probably my main social media site. I can just open the Kindle and I can read. Yes, it's not the ideal conditions. There's noises going on, there is interruptions and stuff like that, but I also have trained myself to read under those circumstances. Now, it does mean my focus probably is less. That if I'm reading something where it's like sentence long paragraphs that go on for 5 pages, I'm probably not going to pull that book out and read that. I'll save that for my Sundays and Mondays, which are my days off. But I might pick something that is lighter, that is something that's a little less that kind of a long-term focus. So yeah, environment does make a difference. I try not to be too precious about it, though. I've got all these little slivers throughout the week, which add up to a good bit of reading for me, and sometimes that's the most practical thing. That's the most practical thing that I can do. Number 3, what methods do you use to retain and recall information from what you've read? For me, I put little notations. If I've got my Kindle here or something like that, especially with my Kindle, I find I don't do it so much now on, I don't read as many physical books, to be honest, anymore. I'm not, and I never was like putting little tabs in. I just found those things were they weren't useful for me. What I would do is I'll put little notes in the Kindle, and then I can hop on my computer at the end, and I find those are good little pointers for like, oh, this is interesting, or I have an idea about this, or oh, look at this later, or read this out later. maybe if I'm going to do a review or something like that. I find all that is useful for me for retaining information. The other thing that I do is like maybe I'll finish a chapter and I'll just turn on my little phone here and record myself and I'll just talk about it. It's nothing that I'm going to share with anyone else, but it's a way of just sort of talking it out. I think either Ruben or Emily in their video said, oh, like, go to someone and talk to them about this. Well, I have a booktube channel because my wife is maybe a little tired of me talking at her about books. So, and I think my booktube friends would get a little tired if I stopped every chapter. I think there's a point in there that I did do that. I just stopped at every chapter and started talking about a book, which maybe there's a vanishingly small audience for that kind of, chapter by chapter analysis of a book. But for the most part, I just do it for myself. And to be honest, I don't actually go back and watch the videos myself, but it's the act of having to talk it out, thinking about the book, pausing, like not doing this kind of headlong rush through a book. I think if you do the headlong rush through the book, maybe you remember I'll remember the beginning, maybe I'll remember a high point here and a high point there, and then I'll remember the end, and the rest can get kind of mushy. Whereas if I go chapter by chapter, it's like episodic television, where you just like, you watch one week, oh, you think about it, and then you go to the next one. Stopping and talking about the book really helps kind of enrich and make it. I'm anti-binge model, I guess is what I'm saying here. Anti-binging books for myself. I find I need to stop as I go along, which is handy because I'm also an incredibly slow reader. So that works for me. How do you approach difficult or challenging material? This is a big thing for both Ruben and Emily. They're very much about those difficult books, those challenging books, which is, I think, for me, a difficult or challenging book that is rewarding isn't difficult or challenging because it's rewarding. It's giving back to me my experience of a book as much as what I get out, as much as I have to put into it. Whereas if I get a book that seems dry, seems boring, that I can't make sense of it, I'll read a chapter and I get to the end of it and I don't have anything to say because it didn't go in, I didn't understand it to such a degree that then I'll turn to some secondary sources and see, like, okay, what am I missing? Because maybe there's just some key there that if I learn about this, then it unlocks itself and I can continue on my own. But there was a certain kind of a vibe that I got from, I think maybe more Ruben, of like, well, that's your problem and that you should kind of work your way through it. And if you work your way through it, you're rewarded, which to a degree I believe. But in another sense, as a slow reader, as a now 50 plus dude, I just go, if I put in a bit of work and I still don't get anything out of it, and I'm just reading it for my own entertainment, edification. If it's not there, there's so many other books that are challenging, interesting, difficult, but rewarding books. Why not just move on to one of those and just sort of let that one go? Because, there's going to be some people, some authors, no matter how great, are just not going to connect with you on a level. And if they don't connect with you intellectually, emotionally, craft-wise, well, then I think it's a waste of your time. I think you can fight your way through a book and within a week, you'll have forgotten everything. Whereas another book will hook in and you will carry it for the rest of your life. So I'm pro difficult books, but I'm pro rewarding difficult books. So that's my approach. That is my approach. Yeah. Number 5, what role do note-taking and annotation play in your reading process? I think what I listed above, the Kindle, it's not like detailed annotation. For me, it's very much more kind of signposts of here's a way that I can then kind of quickly and efficiently go back and kind of go, bang, 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 bang. I've got kind of like little signposts along the way that I can then pull out or I can reread. But I'm not really investing big, deep thoughts into my annotation there. I think it's much more when I talk about things on camera that I do that. I don't really write reviews. I write little potted things for Goodreads, but this is how I kind of process a book. Um, Number six, how do you balance reading for pleasure with reading for personal or professional development? I think I am primarily a pleasure reader. I don't read for work. There's policies and procedures and care plans and things like that that I read for work, but that I wouldn't. That's just work. um, I think for myself that it's 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 reading because it opens up my world. It connects me to the world in a very joyous way, in a very um, way that kind of helps me helps me get through the world. Helps me get through the world. I am not here. At this point in my life, I know it's like I'm not going to become a super genius by reading. I'm I'm hopefully going to understand a little bit more outside of my head than I would if I'd never picked up a book. Like maybe it gives me a little bit more insight into other people. There's some characters in some books, in the fiction side and in the nonfiction side, where it's like, oh wow, I never understood that before. Thinking about the House of Mirth lately, actually, and Lily Bart. Yeah, that kind of emotional connection. Yeah, that sort of thing, or reading a biography of Colette, and that was a different person there. That was a different person, and I really enjoyed that as well. So yeah, that's I don't have a balance. I just I it's all personal. It's all personal. I'm a personal private reader, as the saying goes. Number seven, what is the importance of setting reading goals? I've never had reading goals in the sense of I want to read this many books in a year. That to me seems completely meaningless. You could read 100 books in a year, and they're all kind of mediocre crap that you don't remember any. You could read one book, and that would be a book that catches you, and that's the book of the year, and it's like that's it. That's it. So that's never been a thing. I do have reading projects. At the moment, I've given myself kind of these little arbitrary goalposts, which is what I like about reading projects. It's totally arbitrary. I've made up the rules for myself. I get to follow them if I want to. Where this one is, I'm reading books published from 1890 to 1910, all around the period of my grandfather's birth in 1901. It is completely arbitrary. I could do it any other time, but I just picked this because of a personal connection of my grandfather. I knew him as a young guy, and this is kind of like a connection. So I'm going to read around the time of his birth, just to see what the world was like. I'm reading books from that period and also nonfiction books that talk about that period. And that's just, why? I don't know. I felt like it. And it helps me kind of like learn more. I become kind of an amateur hobbyist about one era. And it's going to take me forever. It will take me forever. I've only started this like this year. Yeah, this year I've started this. And it's like I could see this taking me for a long time. Am I going to only do that? No. But it's like, okay, when I feel like that, that's what I'm going to do. Someone's decided to do some digging outside. So I'm digging into books and they're just digging or doing something out there. Number eight, what are some strategies for overcoming reading slumps or lack of reading motivation? For me, that's just picking up a book I know is good. Like maybe rereading a book is the way to go. I mean, I'm always reading a book, so I've never had a reading slump. I get slowed down by some books. Some books maybe I'm really not enjoying, but for some reason I'm not taking my advice and I just kind of push my way through them. And sometimes you just get strings of books where like, okay, nothing's working. Pick up Douglas Adams. Pick up Alexander McCall's his Doctor series. What the hell are they called? I can't remember. But something light, but is effortlessly written. P.G. Woodhouse. It's interesting. I'm picking a bunch of fellows who write kind of light, effortless books, which is really hard to do, but they're just easy to get through. Um, so yeah, this is the Read Smart tag, and I know that Ruben and Emily are very serious readers, and I do feel like I am a serious reader too. Like I like to read light genre stuff, but very seriously, like looking at it in its social context. What does this express about the world, even if the text itself isn't super complicated? I think other genre readers can get annoyed with me because I'm not just kind of taking it as a fun story. I'm going like, oh, what does it say about how we feel about our fellow human beings, or colonialism, or stuff like that? I enjoy doing that, which is, I'm probably a real freaking killjoy. So yeah, that is what that is my version of this tag. Thank you again to the collaborators who made this tag, to Ruben at To Readers It May Concern, and Emily at Prose and Petticoats for the Read Smart tag. If you haven't done this tag, Bookless Pete, Brian at the Bookish Texan, Dane at Dane Reads, Charlie Heathcote, Joel Swagman, Rachel Morrow, One Book, One Review, Marilyn Mea Mendoza, Heather Reads, I think Kelly and at Books I'm Not Reading, and another bibliophile reads, have already been tagged in this tag. It's an interesting tag. I watched Steve Donahue do it, but he's such a mutant. He just wants to hear what actual, normal human beings would do about it. And yeah, I'd like to hear what normal human beings think about the questions that we're prying into each other's. We like to investigate each other's libraries and see like, oh, what's there, what's on your bookshelves. It's for the most part, most of it is just in this thing now. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear what your answers were. So if you feel like doing it, do it. All right, more videos later.